Everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Christa Gurka. And the last couple episodes, we've been talking all things, staffing, healthy percentages for your business. And today we're going to talk about how to create a profitable schedule for your studio, for your boutique wellness business, but specifically for people that also offer like group sessions, classes, because let's be honest, classes are the most profitable part of your studio, or for most of us, they are. So that is what we are going to discuss today. Balancing a studio schedule and navigating the demands with profit and staff. So those demands are like you don't have enough staff to cover the days you need or the times you need, or you're running classes when they're not optimal, or you're not running classes when it would be most optimal. So have you ever actually taken time to track your studio schedule and how profitable, what times of day are the most profitable for your studio? What days are the most profitable for your studio? Are you leaking money in your studio schedule? And to be honest, most people don't track that. Why? Because we've got like a shit ton of other stuff to do. We're dealing with toilets that are overflowing and vacation requests. And this client complained that she doesn't like the smell of the reform, or she didn't like the perfume that the client next to her is wearing. There's a gazillion things that we can do instead of this. So if you can't do it, maybe you can task someone in your business with helping you. Or at the very least, at the end of this episode, maybe you'll have some tools for how you can actually analyze schedules profitability. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of this. And then I'm also going to look, because I am a big believer that looking at other businesses and other industries is where we can learn how to be the most efficient and how to be the most effective. So it's not just about looking within our own industry, but looking at other industries as well. So the concept of really schedule optimization is not at all new. It dates back actually to the earliest 20th century with a fella named Frederick Taylor, who was studying management principles, right? And then obviously into the 80s, when everything started becoming a little more computerized and scheduling systems became a little more forthright, it got a big push. Okay, so there was a landmark study in 1985 by researchers at Harvard Business School that found that companies using scientific scheduling methods saw an average increase in productivity of 10% with a 7% decrease in labor costs. That's a win-win on both sides. So you're increasing your productivity, which by process of effect would increase your revenue or your output, et cetera, while decreasing labor costs. So you're getting the top line and the bottom line. You're improving your profit from both sides. Okay. And so how do you calculate? How do you adjust? How do you evaluate your schedule profitability? I'm going to talk to you about some key metrics that you can look at. All right. One is labor cost percentage. So this is the total cost of your labor divided by your revenue for any given period. So let's say your payroll is, okay, I'll take Pilates and Bread for example. So our payroll for a month, right? So we do payroll every 2 weeks. So our payroll for a month is about $60,000. And our revenue for a month is approximately $125,000. Okay. So our 60,000 divided by 125,000 is 48%. Okay. Now that is our industry. Okay. A service-based industry. Now, for other industries, they recommend that we keep this between 20 and 35%. That's not ideal in our industry, but we're not ordering food like in the restaurant industry, and we're not ordering material and merchandise like in a retail industry. So In our industry, when we're a service provider, direct cost of goods service, right? It's usually a little bit higher. Okay. So then there's also sales per labor hour, which is calculating, dividing your total sales by the number of labor hours for that period. Right. Now, some of this you could also look at in in your scheduling software. So there are in MindBody, there are some reports that will run this. In Moments, there are some reports that will run this. So it will basically tell you which times a day are you most productive, right? Which classes are the most productive? So in Pilates in the Grove, during from like 8 to 12 is our most productive times a day, because sometimes during that time period, we can have a group class going on with 10 reformers, and then we can have 3 private sessions going on at the same time. All right, so that's usually our most productive time of the day. Now, there's also customer traffic patterns, right? So you can track when customers are most likely to visit. And that's, again, a lot of our scheduling platforms have this. And then you also have different workforce management systems, which are our Moments, MindBody, these different CRMs, which can tell us, Walla is another one, which can tell us when we are most productive and who our most productive staff members are. If you track things like sales and who makes the sales and commissions, you can also tell who are your most productive salespeople. Not a lot of people in our business do that, but if you have one specific person that's accountable for sales, you can do that a lot of times in your software. All right. Okay. So let's talk about, you can also, by the way, track, this is one thing that we started doing. We can track how many calls, because we use a voice over internet system. We use GoToConnect. A lot of people use Google Voice. I think there's another one called One Phone or On Phone. I can't remember what it is, but we can see how many calls we got, and we can actually graph it out. So we can see how often we're getting phone calls and during what times of the day are they most happening, so we can decide when we need to man the front desk and have people be able to answer the calls. All right. So let's start looking now at different industries. Okay. So the first one I'd like to talk about is the food and beverage industry, the restaurant industry. So how many of us are watching The Bear right now? I'm already finished season 3. I'm a binger. If something's coming out and it gives me all the episodes, I can watch it in 24, 48 hours. I love it. I really love The Bear. I also really am always a big fan of learning from the restaurant industry. I think there's a book that's written by Will Guidara. I don't know how you pronounce his last name, so I apologize if I'm butchering it. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality, and he is like one of the people behind 11 Madison, and it's just amazing. It's like the book is great. You read, you can hear so much about culture and team, and it's just a great book in terms of customer experience. I thought it was great. So anyways, The Bear is phenomenal, and you really see behind the scenes of what a high touch restaurant is like. And so for any of you, I worked in the restaurant industry for many, many years, putting myself through college and high school and grad school. And so if any of you have worked in that industry, you know it's very stressful. You can also know that the margins are very tight, sometimes non-existent. And so there's tons of food costs, there's wasted labor costs, wasted food costs, there's customer fluctuations in demand. And so creating a profitable schedule in this industry is all about maximizing the peak hours of the business and minimizing waste as much as possible. Okay, so let me give you a couple examples. And so my brother-in-law is in the restaurant industry. Shout out to Seth Gurka. If you're in Manhattan, go check out his barbecue place. So it's called Hill Country. Love it, love it, love it. And so I talked to him about a few different scenarios, and then I researched some restaurants. So there's a little coffee shop in Seattle, Coffee Cave. And what they did was they implemented a dynamic scheduling system that adjusted staff levels based on like historical data. So they could see that during the morning was really rushed, right? And then they reduced it during afternoon hours because probably not as many people are buying coffee in the afternoon. And they actually saw a 15% increase in profitability in 6 months. So great stuff, right? Now, on the flip side, there was a burger joint that kept the same staffing the whole day. So what happened to them was they were overstaffed during slow periods and understaffed during rushes, and that resulted in higher labor costs and lower productivity and lower sales. Have you ever walked into a place where it's packed and they have like one person behind the counter? As a business owner, that drives me crazy because these people should know when their highest um, busiest times are. So in the restaurant industry, in the F&B industry, food and beverage, it really, you want your schedule to be as fluid as, possible. So in the summer, you might have a different schedule than in the winter, depending on where you're located. So another one that we look at is the education sector. So my brother, shout out to Jared, he is Dr. Jared Rashford. He is the head of school in North Carolina. That's what he's done his whole career. He's in education, as well as my husband's parents. His mom was a principal, and so they were all in education for a while, and they worked a lot on developing curriculum and developing schedules specifically for high school that would both be innovative and get the most out of kids. So, people say, my brother says this all the time. He's like, the only thing, if people from like the 1920s came back to this country, the only thing that they would recognize is the school system, because that's the only thing that hasn't changed with the times. So one of the things that a lot of educators have done is adopted flexible block schedules. So if you don't have kids, you don't have block schedules, or where you have instead of having 8 periods a day, you would have like 4 periods one day and then 4 periods the next day. So what that did was it prevented or decreased the amount of classes people missed. So let's say you were an athlete and you always had to leave school early, you were always missing the same classes. With this type of thing, you're not missing the same classes, okay? And so the other time, some people have done early morning, they are doing blocks of like early morning classes and late afternoon classes, accommodating students that have part-time jobs, which is pretty amazing in my opinion. This really saw higher attendance rates, improved test scores, and basically the school's overall financial health, because they were state sponsored by the county. So really scheduling for education, prioritizing students' needs, parents' needs, can teach us how to have better outcomes, higher graduation rates, decrease teacher burnout, all things that we would hope to accomplish in the education sector. Okay. So if you're like, I don't really want to listen to any of that stuff, I don't really care. Now let's shift into our industry, all right? Health and fitness, health and wellness. So over the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, especially in big box gyms, a lot of businesses have transitioned to this like 24/7 model, or at least like, maybe they're closed from like 12 to 4. I know that I belong to a Lifetime Fitness here in Miami, and they are open from 4 a.m. till 12 midnight. So they're basically only closed for 4 hours. But what's really been important for these big box gyms is to adjust their staff accordingly. Okay, so what a lot of these gyms can do is they can use technology, because usually you have to track your your card when you go in, and so they can track number of check-ins throughout a 2 to 3 month period, and especially in different seasons, and then they can staff accordingly. So in other words, if they will have more staff during the highest peak hours and less staff during the lowest peak hours, right? So that really, again, increases productivity, decreases costs, and increases overall your profitability. Now, the flip side would be if there was, you just basically had full staffing the whole day, and now you're going to have like a bunch of people sitting around twiddling their thumbs from like 8 to 10 p.m., right? Or from 3 to 4 p.m., because maybe that's a downtime. So in our studio, let's take in boutique fitness, okay? Maybe if there's some studios that you want to have maybe one or two people at the front desk during high business times, maybe you don't need one to two people during the middle of the day times. And this is again what your ethos is. Do you want to lean in to a unique selling proposition that you have, complete what's the word I'm looking for? Complete customer service, like round the clock customer service. If you do, then that's something you want to consider. But if you don't, if you're really not busy from 3 to 5, maybe you don't have to have someone at the front desk from 3 to 5. All right. So if you have, maybe somebody can be working from home, maybe they have flex schedules. So there's things like that. So, in 2023, IHRSA, which is the International Health Racquet and Sports Club Association, IHRSA, they did a survey and said that boutique fitness is the fastest growing segment in fitness. So boutique fitness coming out of the pandemic has really started to rise with 121% membership increase over the last 5 years. So what's happening is people are leaving big box gyms, some of them, and really leaning into boutique fitness, right? And so now the demographics that they found was the highest demographic is women between the ages of 25 and 44. Now, that is overall IHRSA doing like a completely a cohesive report. When we break down our numbers at Pilates in the Grove, our demographic, and we looked at these numbers over a 5-year period, we have our demographic skews higher between 44 and 72, still predominantly women, but not 80-20, it's more like 60-40, okay? Age between 44 years of age and 72 years of age. So I say that we should look at this with your individual studio in mind, not necessarily IHRSA or the boutique fitness data, et cetera. Look at it in your studio, and you can do this by extrapolating data from your scheduling system. All right. Now, when we look at what popular class times are, one, we survey our clients. What are the most popular class times? And then we also look at who the demographic is that make up our studio. So we don't have people that come at 6 a.m. in the morning. If our demographic is between 44 and 72, we have some people that will come at 7 and 7:30, and then we're very busy after school drop off, and then late mornings. All right, we do have capacity in the evenings, but it's not huge. So like in the mornings where we have a schedule that starts, we go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. In the afternoons, we have one class, like we have a 4, a 6. Okay, on every other day. So we're not as busy in the afternoon. That's just because who our demographic is. But some studios, if you have a younger clientele or a younger base, maybe you're busier after 4 p.m. If you are in an area where there's a lot of offices and people will come to you at lunch, maybe you're going to be busy between 11 and 2. So it's just important that you track your data within your own business. Right? And then if you're trying to attract a new demographic, make sure that you have those schedules that would attract that demographic. So if you're trying to attract a working demographic, you want to have early morning or late evening. And then if you need to have early morning, do you have showers where they can change to go to work? These are all things that you want to think about. Do you need to have weekends? Some people are like, we don't need weekends. Some people are like, no, weekends are our busiest. So it really is important to look at the data in your specific business and then do more of what's working. So when I was looking to decide if I wanted to open up a third location, I met with a couple of my mentors, people like in my masterminds and things like that, because again, asking for help helps. And we kind of did a deep dive into our numbers, and one of them suggested really trying to start some afternoon classes. And we really hadn't done afternoon classes since we were coming back after COVID. And I was a little hesitant because, again, I thought, again, I'm using air quotes, I thought those would not be popular. But remember, feelings are not facts. So we added 4 o'clock classes, and starting with Tuesday and Thursday. And now we have 4 o'clock classes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And they are full 90% of the time. And they don't fill early. What I think people love about these classes is if they have time in the afternoon, or they get out of work early, or they miss their morning workout, they can come in the middle of the afternoon at 4. And so what we, instead of, looking to open another studio, I said, I'm going to maximize and optimize the profitability within my own studio, within the 4 walls, of my brick and mortar, before I expand and take on more overhead. So that's just something, to think about when you're looking at your studio schedule. Where can you optimize? What about seasonal variations, right? In the summer, for example, depending on where you are, if you're in the Hamptons, maybe you get busier in the summer. In Miami, we tend to get a little slower in the summer. So we might take off a few classes in the summer, because what usually happens is during our busy time, which is like from October to April, we're full, like wait list from 7, 8, 9, 10. And so what happens is those 11 and 12 o'clock classes, or 11:30, 12:30 classes, get all the pushover from wait lists of people that can't get into the popular classes. So in the summer, when some of our snowbirds go away, or people are traveling, or kids' school schedules change, then we don't have as many wait lists. So all those people that really get pushed into those 11 or 12 o'clock class can come earlier. And so sometimes what we'll do is we'll look, and if we can take off a class, right, that's not a profitable class, and we know that in order to be profitable, we need to have 2 or more people in there consistently, then we'll take that off the schedule, so we're not losing money by having that on the schedule. We won't do it for all of the classes. We just do it for a few, less than 5 usually, right? So again, analyze your attendance data. You can do this in MindBody and Moments, all right? You can track attendance over time to identify patterns. Can you see a pattern? Can you see that in July, your utilization falls all the time? So maybe what are some things you can do pre-July or in July to boost utilization? Can you do pop-up classes? Can you do little events? Can you do a challenge of some sort to keep people engaged in July? Can you test different times? Can you do another survey for your members before the summer? Hey, we know summer schedules change. What would you like to see on the schedule? All right. So the goal here is to balance popular times with your instructor availability and your studio's capacity. And then when you're going to, so if you think, well, none of my people will work Saturday and Sunday or in the evenings, well, you need to get new people. Okay. Staff should not dictate the schedule. So what you should do, though, is if you're going to hire new people and you're looking for new instructors, and you know that you need somebody to work the evenings, don't interview anyone that is not available for the evenings. If you are willing to pay for someone to go through the teacher training, which a lot of studios are doing now, and I think it's a great idea because we need instructors, if you're going to pay for them, make sure they understand that when they go through the program, your expectation is that they will come and teach Tuesday and Thursday, 6 and 7 p.m. and Saturday mornings. And if they're not available or willing to do that, then they shouldn't get the opportunity to have a fully funded teacher training program by you. So make sure that you are clear on your expectations, that you need these people. All right. And then if somebody leaves during those more prime times and these people want to move up, then you can always move the people that are in the evenings, give them the first right of refusal to different class times. And then when you bring in new people, they work the evenings and the weekends. So to recap, basically, when you look at how can you optimize your schedule, is know what your break even and what your profitability is in terms of your labor cost to your schedule. So if you know that you're profitable when 3 people go into a class, that's what you want to shoot for. You want to align your staff with the demands of your clients. So if a lot of people need Saturdays, then you need to hire someone to take on Saturdays. If you're a physical therapist, if you're a Pilates studio, can you rotate on Saturdays? So it's one person works one Saturday a month. All right. Use the technology that you have to treat and adjust your schedule accordingly. So we, in one studio, we tried to build evening classes for a while and they just didn't build. Okay. And so we have evening classes 2 days a week, and the other 2 days a week we close early. We let the admin team go early. We don't have classes. And so it saves us on some labor costs. Now, some people would look at that and say, well, you're still paying rent and things of this nature. And yes, we are still paying rent, but we can maximize and optimize other times of the day in order to kind of counterbalance that. All right. So a profitable schedule is not just about cutting costs. It's really, really about optimizing the resources that you have. And the resources you have are your instructors, your admin, your your promotions and things of that to best suit. How can you optimize those resources to best serve your clients? This, in the long run, will boost your bottom line. And it will also make your clients really happy. So track some data. Let's track some data for the next third quarter, July, August, September. Track some data. Which classes are the most profitable? Which instructor might be the most profitable? Which time of day, which day is the most profitable and the least profitable? Just look at it. Just look at it and then decide if you can understand what the story is that those numbers and metrics are telling you. All right. So I hope you found this information helpful. If you have, any questions, you can always DM me over on Instagram. If you found this useful and you think another studio owner might find it useful, it would mean a lot to me if you took a screenshot of yourself listening to this and tag me over on Instagram. I'm at Christa Gurka. Again, it really does help me get this information in front of more women in the boutique fitness and wellness industry. And I would be eternally grateful to you. So thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Until next time, bye, my friends.